Today, John and Henry speak about our inner self-critic, the voice that is constantly judging and analyzing everything we do. Listen in as they show you how to navigate and sidestep this voice, as well as how we can avoid strengthening our children's inner self-critic.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to another episode of The Universal Lens, where we help you help yourself. Oh, I like that.
It's not bad.
No, it's not bad.
You stumbled upon it.
Yes, that just spewed out of my mouth.
You're a poet and you didn't know it.
I am a poet and I didn't know it. So everybody, welcome back. Another beautiful week. If you're somewhere else besides the Northeast, it's a beautiful week.
Yeah, if you're Vietnam, hey.
I was telling Henry that we have some listeners. It shows up demographically, geographically, I'm sorry, where they are. And we have, comes in and goes out, like these Asia, and Vietnam is one of them that shows up occasionally. So if you're out there, peace, we're watching you.
We're going to do a tour. We'll come.
Yes.
Ho Chi Minh City, look up.
I don't know if I can do that. That's a trip, bro. That's a trip. It's a trip.
I haven't been to Vietnam, but I've been to China, I've been to India, I've been to.
Yeah, you've been to more. You've been to more of the non-European world than I have.
Yeah,
I've been to the European world, but that's about where
I got to tell you, it's interesting to say you did it, but you don't want to spend more than a few days there.
It's because it's not your thing. It's not what you're used to. It's not your culture. So,
but I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate the hell out of it. Absolutely, I can appreciate the hell out of it. There is part of me that would love to go there and see that one day, but I don't know if I get anybody else to want to get on the plane with me and go, because it is a little bit of a trip, like to go to the Far East Asia.
I do. We conquer the world. We conquered Greece.
We pulled off Greece. I think we cashed our hall passes in on that one for a while.
That's right. You're right about that.
Just pull back the reins a little bit.
You're right about that.
Honey, we're going to Vietnam. Oh, are you?
Yeah, really. I've heard that one before.
I don't think so. Anyway, so good to be here on the tail of last week's episode. So I was talking to Henry, and I listen to a lot of podcasts out there, kind of based on the same thing that we do. No offense to Joe Rogan or people like that. That's not my, that's not my jam. That's not what I feel. That's not what I feel my subconscious mind with. I like to absorb as much of this world as I can because there's so much positive influence in it. But there's a podcast. They were talking, one of their episodes I was listening to, and it was a great topic. So I was like, you know what? I think it'd be great to piggyback off of that because it's something that we've always spoken about, but not focused on. So we've mentioned it, right? Like what it is, those voices in our heads, but we've never really gave it a name. And they actually, in the episode, it's your inner self-critic, right?
Interesting.
And I was like, yeah. I was like, okay. I was like, in 94? I can't say, but 94 episodes maybe. I don't think we've ever really done an episode on that. I'm like,
we never called it that.
We never called it that. So we've done episodes on that. It's the voice in your head, we call it, but we've never gone deeper into it. So they were talking about the inner self-critic, and I'm like, that'd be a great episode to kind of jump in on and maybe share with all listeners if they haven't,
Yeah, man. It takes a special person to be able to talk about your inner self-critic. You know what that is? You're critiquing your critiquer.
Well, it's actually what you want to do is cast a light on your inner self-critic and become aware that it's there and actually face it face to face, like not run away from it. Like understand that it's there, know that it's there, acknowledge it, accept it, and then be able to make choices in your life in spite of it. But the more fascinating part of it for me is, where does it come from? So like, where does your inner critic, where does it come from? That criticism that you have of yourself. And it's an obvious, it's not an obvious answer.
You mean what it keeps critiquing you about?
No, what it keeps critiquing, where did it start? Where did it come from? So we learn, our minds are an algorithm. It's ever evolving. Yeah. So as we're growing up, we're exposed to certain things. And as we're growing up, as we're exposed to certain things, we're exposed to certain ideas, mentalities, thoughts, whatever it might be. Our mind absorbs that and starts to form its own database, right? So where does our inner self-critic like who gives us our inner self-critic? If I had to ask you a question.
Okay. I believe you're going to point to the parents, the parental upbringing. Yeah,
Of course.
yeah. By the way,
And
I was going
it's
to say
not
that.
always the case, but
So I don't
tends to
know
be.
how true that is, but to me, it'll make sense, right? I mean, that's your formative years. Those are your moments where your brain goes from a solid, clean marble to getting its grain,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And then as it engrains, these are the things that stick with you subconsciously. Nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody knows you're writing some code, but that's what's happening.
Well, that's why it's very important for us. And this is why I kind of like this, piggybacking off of last week's episode, because we're speaking about how we mold our children as we get older, right? This is a major proponent of molding your children as you get older.
My God, yes.
Giving that, like, we don't realize that our inner self-critic is given to us not maliciously, right? Your parents do things with the best of intentions. They do what they know, or what they knew, or what they think is best or was best at the time.
The only thing they know.
Yeah, exactly. So where does it come from? That inner self-critic comes from our parents. It comes from our early childhood, whether it's a parent or a coach, or if you didn't have parents, whoever your
the biggest influence.
Yes, whoever your adult influence was, your adult role model was in your life, that was the person that when they said something, it would stick with you. It would resonate with you. It would code you, right? Almost. So like for me when I was a kid, my father, loving man, great guy, love him to death. I'm actually going to see him in a week when he did down in Florida. But he was a hard ass growing up as a kid. Like, he was a typical off the boat Italian American. I made my world, I made my bones here. I worked my ass off, blah, blah, blah. Not taking any of that away from him. Absolutely. But that mentality was then, it was given to him from his father, right? Yeah. And then he tried to give that to us. So work hard. You got to do better. You could do better. That's not good enough. Rah, rah, rah. Every word the words were said with love because they wanted the best for you, but they didn't realize while they were saying those words, as we're interpreting them, we're creating this narrative in our minds that says, I got to do better. It's not good enough. I'm too weak. I got to be stronger than this. And is there a benefit to that? I'm going to say there is a benefit to a certain point, but then when does it become a hindrance? So when does that inner self-critic now go from being something that, was meant to help us or meant to help us get over something to now beating us up internally, becoming our critic, right? Our judge in our head, judging us constantly in everything we're doing. And if you have the wrong kind of person, that could become a major detriment for that person. That could become something that really holds them back. That could be something that keeps them stuck from moving forward constantly because all they do is believe the story that you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, get over it, man up. With anxiety and OCD, those are the things. I'll just get over it, let it go, because that kind of worked for them to a certain point, whether they were repressing things, the old timers, I don't know, but it didn't work for me. Like for me, I have to speak. I know it didn't work for me. Like that inner self-critic, did it help me do things in life? Yes, but the trade-off was it tortured the shit out of me, right? So, is there a better way to do it? I mean, the answer is going to be yes. Is there a better way to do it, right? How do we teach our kids to be all those things? Stronger in the face of adversity, right? Having the willpower or the determination to see something through. How do we teach that to our kids without using language, right? Because for us, it's language, right? A big thing on our show is the words we use frame our reality and the way we see life. So if I keep thinking I'm not good enough, to this day, my mind always has that story. You're not good enough to do that. You're not good enough to do that. You can't be as good as that person because I was a very timid child, right? I was not a beat my chest kind of kid. So I always fell to the back because I felt safe there, right? My mom would say, no, just stay here because that's too. And my father was such a strong power it overpowered me completely, like completely. Again, with all the love in the world. I'm not, this isn't a ripping on daddy or ripping on mommy show. It has nothing to do with that. But how do we teach our kids to be those things? By using language that actually doesn't give. Now, I don't think you could not give somebody in a self-critic. I think your mind as it develops is going to want to do that on its own just because of social media and the life we live in nowadays. It's all around us, even if it's not in our homes. But how do we give our kids that the tools to be able to look at that inner self-critic and say, right, or maybe not a fuel to the fire one, right? So they'll make it more powerful than it's going to be on its own, right? Because social media, like I said, social media, the media, news, just life in general nowadays, you're probably not, there's not a shortage of finding a place where you'll develop this in a self-critic just by looking around, right? I could put my phone on, scroll 5 minutes and go, yeah, my podcast sucks and I'm not good and I can't,
Right.
I'm not good at these people. So it's there anyway. So how do we help our kids? Like, what can we do to help our kids to?
Yeah, that's quite the observation, and that's quite the issue. And I'm going to say this before we say anything, that anybody that tunes into this show and then all of a sudden this is like their first 1 or 2 or 3 episodes they're catching, it's kind of like, I don't want you or anyone to ever think that we're telling you what you have to do. This is the best way. Over here, we explore different things that we've lived through, different things that anybody could potentially live through.
Yeah.
And we always frame it with a mindfulness frame. And our discussions are meant to better, are meant to empower, are meant to disassociate with the story that could be ailing you. Basically, if you hear any criticism, that's not the case. We're not critiquing at all, because he just spoke about his parents. So I don't want your parents to think you're critiquing. You're telling a story.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I said that.
And your story,
I'm not beating on anybody, no.
And your story is, I think, similar to
a lot of people.
99.9% of the stories, which is, where else are we going to get our formation from? Where else are we going to get that guy who's the critiquer, the what do you call the inner critic?
By the way, I had that in me. Like, I started doing that to my kids when I was younger, when they were very young, before I went through kind of what I went through, and I realized my old patterns were, I was just passing them on to them.
Yeah.
Well, I realized that I gave my son John the old man up thing a bunch of times when he was a kid. So I mean, like, I'm not sitting here I'm not sitting here in a glass house and saying, by all means, I know the errors that I made as a parent when my kids were younger, and I'm talking when they were like 5, 4, 6. Because thankfully, what happened to me happened to when they were still young enough that I was able to rectify, pivot, shift out, the navigation on my ship and turn in a different direction, and whatever old patterns I had weren't around long enough to solidify in that, right? And I've spent, my life trying to show them a new way, and thankfully, for the most part, they have. But yeah, I mean, I'm guilty of it too.
Well, I'll join you.
I'm not guilty, Dad. I did the same thing you did.
I'll join you
in love.
Yep, I'll join you in that statement. In that, there's a bunch of things that both my wife and I, both of us, did wrong, and there's stuff that I'm not even proud of or happy that I did in hindsight.
Yeah.
But I did reverse course. I did pivot. I did shift. And also, mine were a little older than yours when you first started, but they were still young enough to understand and capture.
Yeah.
Actually, I would say they understood it well because they were older, and they saw what was going on. And I think that the same thing that hit you when you matured, the same thing that hit me when I matured. So when I matured, I realized, I go back and I used to think about, again, my mom or whatever my father would do. And I would think, and I would always give them grace in saying, hey, they didn't know any better. There is no book.
That's exactly how we look at it.
There is no book on parenting. So they did what they thought was best.
Yeah.
And that's it. And what more can we say? We did what we thought was best, and that's it. What can we say? But now we understand that there's a better way. There's a better way of bringing somebody, or just basically surrounding the air with mindfulness is enough. That's the better way. And when I mean surrounding the air, meaning we're curating our language. We stopped with the symbols that we might not want, and just that alone
Has a profound, makes
right.
profound
And then
sense.
you're living mindfully with your wife. You're living mindfully with them. When they come and ask you a question, you answer it mindfully. You don't answer. You don't give the
Emotional answer.
that quick knee jerk reaction. So yeah. So if that is your launch pad, it's possible that their inner critic will be different than yours. I'm not saying they won't have. I think they're going to have one.
It's impossible almost not to have. It's actually, it isn't. So if you have a thinking mind, it's impossible not to have one.
Yeah.
It's learning not to pay attention to it. It's twofold. It's learning not to pay attention to it and make choices based on the things that are important to you in your life. And two, not to fuel it and give it more of a foothold than it actually than it actually requires or needs or wants. Because the difference is when I was younger, I didn't realize it. So that inner critic just got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. The narrative got louder and louder and louder and louder. It until one day you flipped a different way, and then it was a different inner critic. But it was always there. I never realized how to look at it from a neutral standpoint and be like, you're just telling me words. You're just saying things that you've learned, but they're not true. I give the truth to what you're saying, right?
Well, sometimes they also taught you without words, actions, and those actions imprinted a code of this is how you this is how you react with something like this, how you act with something.
Yeah.
So all that is part of your learning, your coding, all of it. And I think that we can't escape the observation that I don't know if it's biological or evolutionary, I don't know, but there's a process that little being goes through as it's growing and as the faculties are growing. There's a biological or evolutionary process that we go through where we are encoding that inner critic. So the inner critic is just another word for the thought, which is the thinking mind.
Yeah.
So if it's just another word for the thinking mind, for this particular action that it does, critique you, there's no way around the inner critic. So what we want to be mindful of is to make sure that I'm not saying protect or falsify, but instead of a blind household, it's a mindful household. And by the way, a lot, I hear studies and I see anecdotal evidence of single parent household versus a dual parent household, the pros and the cons. So here's an area where, again, I don't have the numbers, I don't have the data, I could just go by instinct tells me that even if you're in a single parent household, and I can't imagine how difficult that is, mindfulness in the forefront, you really have, I'm not saying neutralized all the negative, but you've done a lot.
No, sure. It's a major
Right?
advantage that you give the child. If you're a mindful parent, yeah, you give that child such a better chance to be able to navigate and deal with things in life as they get older.
Because you were familiar with your critiques, but your inner critiques of you. But it seems like everybody has that criticism of themselves, and that criticism is born from that upbringing.
Yeah.
So
where else is it going to come from?
So no matter what that criticism is, you're too fat, you're too short, you're too stupid, you're not good enough, you're not big enough, you're not
man up,
man
up. Don't be a wimp.
Men don't cry. What are you doing?
And those are all those phrases that we just rattled off are the words that stick and then repeat in our heads in any given situation where our mind deems it's necessary. Let's remind John he's not strong enough. Let's remind John he's not good enough. Let's remind John he's not whatever, right? Whatever it might be. But why? Because I'm trying to protect John. So I'm going to warn John, don't do this. You're not good enough. We're going to keep you safe. So, I mean, we're kind of talking about, the inner critic, but as we always do, we kind of put that mindful spin on it instead of just getting scientific into what the inner critic is. But if we change the words we use, so if my kid was 9, 8 years old and something happens where there's a situation where he doesn't do well in something, or he was complaining about something, oh, this is too heavy, I can't carry it. There's a couple of ways to go about it, right? The first one is man up. Come on, what's wrong with you? Don't be a pussy, or don't be a little bitch, or don't be a this, or don't be okay. Those words now are ingrained in that kid's head. Next time it comes up, that's what he's going to hear. Not me. I might have to say it to him, but it's going to repeat in his head. And he's going to say that to himself. Now that's going to amplify and go and go. And you don't know what road it takes that child down as they get older, right? You don't know what direction that points them in. Not necessarily success and glamour and all the great things in life that it could be self-torture, depression. You could go through down so many avenues. How do we change that? Instead of using words like man up, explain it to your kid what's going on. Say, hey, I know it's heavy, right? But sometimes when you struggle with things in life, we give a little bit more effort to try to get it done. Or I know it's something that's burdensome right now. I know you don't want to do it, but unfortunately, there are times in life where we do things that we don't want to do because there's a benefit to it. Now, what's the message that kid got from that? Sometimes things are tough in life. And when they're tough in life, I can't help it. It's a situation that I can't control. It's tough. I have to do this right now because it's important. So I'm going to put my best foot forward and I'm going to give it my best shot. And I'm going to I'm not good enough. See, I got to be a man, because the one where if you're not good enough, be a man up, you're setting that bar so high that when are you ever going to actually say, I'm the man? I did everything? Because your mind's going to go, no, you could do better. No, you could do better. So there's never going to be that happy medium or that balance where you're going to be able to sit with your mind and go, hey, okay, I'm dealing with this the best I can. I understand it, blah, 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 whatever it might be. It's always going to be, no, you're not doing good enough. You're not doing good enough. You're not doing good enough. So would I rather arm my kid with tools and language and a dictionary in his mind, because we need to use words that are going to be beneficial to him, and could, by the way, get the same result in that task or that event or that situation as the other way, but have that kid coming out of it feeling empowered, feeling like he made a choice in his or her benefit, instead of feeling like I need to live up to something. That's, by the way, a fictitious story, lie, line, whatever you want to say it is.
That's the key,
right?
I think I think if you tell that, this is the key that unlocks that. If you tell the kid anything that you hear your mind telling you, it's a fictitious story.
What?
Yeah, that
is
thing that tells you, oh, I'm not good enough. It's a fictitious story. Perhaps you are not, but perhaps you are. I don't know, but.
Yeah, not to say that you're going to be great at everything because your mind. No, it's not about that.
I can't play soccer like Ronaldo.
No,
I just can't.
I can't.
I can't do it.
But you're able then to see the differences between reality and the story. So like, your own limitations as a person as you get older. You understand them, your physical limitations, even your mental limitations. Like, I can't build a rocket to fly into space. My mind doesn't compute that way. It's not that I'm going to say, I could do it anyway. Yeah, okay, I can say that to myself till I'm blue in the face and I'm not good enough. I got to learn. But we do understand there are limitations to us as human beings. And as you get older, you start to realize what those limitations are, whether it's an intellectual limitation, not everybody's Einstein, right? Or physical limitation, not everybody's a 5'2" athlete, D1 or major league or pro. No. Some people are happy mediums. Yeah, they're very smart and they're good at sports. Okay, that's fine.
Or the other way around.
And it's not, you don't strive for something. It's not about that. It's what narrative am I going to believe as I'm trying to work on something? The one that's going to torture me the whole time, or the one that's going to empower me? So for me, the inner critic does nothing but torture you and beat you until it's happy, which it never is, by the way, because an inner critic has one job. It's in the title it's in the words. It's there to critique you at all times, 100%. It doesn't take a day off. So do I want to go the inner critic route, or do I want to go the empowering route, which, by the way, both could accomplish these same things as far as what you tasks in life, goals in life that you might have. Both could accomplish things, but one's going to have it's going to empower you because you're making choices to your benefit in spite of the story. And the other one's going to say, if you don't accomplish it, you're weak, you're this, you're that. And even if you do, you could have done better. You could have done better. I'm exhausted just saying that side. Like literally, I get physically exhausted.
Yeah.
I look at people who are on 24/7, whether they're politicians. You see those people who they don't stop with the "I'm the best." It's exhausting. It's got to be exhausting in their heads because at all times they're playing defense. They're on defense constantly from "I'm better. I got to be better. Oh, am I good enough? I got to be better." Instead of this new route that like it's been around, not that we discovered it, but like that I see now that I could do myself and then tell my children or people about it. Or even when I speak with somebody, be like, "This road, by the way, is actually an easy pass. It's a lane.
Yeah.
There's going to be obstacles, but with this, you're going to be able to just travel through them."
Yeah, I mean, if I can transfer that idea to life is you enjoy this journey so much more.
Amen. Perfect.
That's it. I mean,
that's why I got him.
But like
he takes what's in here and he sums it up sometimes.
I'm going to tell you something that I'm guilty of, and I know you're probably no, you know what, you're probably not, but maybe you understand.
You don't know.
Something so simple, and I'm gonna be the first one to admit.
I'll tell you if I am. I'll be honest.
I admit this flaw, and I'm admitting it because a part of me is so jealous. When I would go to parties, and I would see people dancing and having such a good time, I love watching them have a good time. And I'm not saying how wacky that guy dances or how stupid they look. Not at all. I'm watching them all just have a great time. And my feet are going, and I'm doing this, but I'm not going out there. Because I have this inner critic that goes, "You don't know how to dance." But I am not enjoying that moment as they are. And I'm jealous. I'm like, look at that. Good for you. I'm living with them, but I am not getting out. I'm not going out there. I'm not going out there. I look like a fucking idiot. What are you talking about?
So I used to be, that definitely was a one of the narratives of my inner critic. 110%.
Yeah.
Whatever social event that might have been, but at a party too, I admit, if I try to dance, I hear it in my head, but my body says, my body hears clown music while it's a beautiful song playing. Like, like in my mind, I'm like, "Oh, I got this here," and I'll start to move, and everybody looking at me and go,
"Nope,
bro, there's a disconnect." Like what you're hearing and what your body is doing are two very different things right now, and I accept that. So, but now when I go to a party, if I really want to get up there and dance, I'll go up there and I'll dance. But that's it. I'll go up and I'll dance to my limitations that I do have, because if I try to do, some crazy move, I'll probably tear something because that's not how I'm built, right? But before, I was the same. Like, I'd sit there, man, and I wouldn't enjoy that moment because my mind would tell me, "You're going to make a fool of yourself. Don't go out there. Stay here, John."
And I'm going to tell you a little bit where it came from. I can point to where, all growing up, I was heavy. So I wasn't, I was never happy with my body. I was always a fat kid everywhere. But there are fat people everywhere, and they enjoy themselves. I wasn't taught that. So the critique.
That's the key.
The critique that I got was, at least maybe even it was even self-imposed for all.
It can be just from society.
Society. You're not happy. You're not happy. You're the fat guy.
Where does that come from?
Right.
Where does that come from?
There's a group of friends. You're the fat guy.
Exactly. This isn't from parents. That's what I said before.
Yeah.
Society in and of itself is a horrible barometer for a person, or a horrible place for a person to try to develop some sort of where they can develop an inner self-critic, an inner critic that is just unforgiving. And you don't need a mom and a dad who are just tough on you to give you that.
And it's unreasonable. It's unforgiving and unreasonable.
Because
why?
It keeps you from doing what?
Enjoying life.
To whatever limit, whatever it is, it stops you from doing the things that you would like. Like, remember we always say on the show, Is that something you would want to do? Yes. Then why not you doing it? Well, no. Well, do you want to do it? Yes. Why aren't you doing it? Well, again, you're giving me a story. You're not telling me what. Is that something you would like to do? Like, there could be a legitimate reason. Yes, I would love to fly a plane, but whatever, I become a pilot, but I don't have the time, unfortunately, because I have to work to support my family. That's a legitimate excuse. That's not you making an excuse. That's not an innocent to say, I can't do it. I'm scared to do it. That's okay. I just like, this is more important. So that's like, I'm choosing a value to take care of my family more than something else. But like, is that something you would like to do? Like, would you love to go out there and dance? Yes.
Yeah.
Then why not? Would you love to go talk in front of those people and tell them what you learned? Oh my God, yes. Then why not?
Because
I'm not going to.
I look ridiculous.
I look ridiculous.
I already know everybody's going to look at me like I got 14 heads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who wants to hear a guy with a Brooklyn accent talking to me about mindfulness? Like, I hear that. I do. I hear that in my head, but yet, no. Like, I want to do that. So now, later in life, I choose differently. I choose empowering. I don't choose the inner self-critic, which keeps me there, right? So with our kids, we have the ability to show them that while you can't live a life void of an inner self-critic in your mind, but you can live a life separate of that inner self-critic.
Or enjoy your life in spite of
in spite of that
critic.
And
that critic's going to be there.
And it does, while the things that it says might not change, the volume that it says it at does over time. So now it's not at a 10.
Good.
It goes to an 8, a 7, a 6. It might just stay at a 5 then. It might stop at a 5 or a 4, right? Because like I said, Dr. Stephen Hayes, who was one of the founders of acceptance for commitment therapy, said it best. The mind does not have a delete button. Once it's in, it's in. This isn't a database where it forgets those important things. It doesn't. Like, that's there, it's going to be in there. But the less attention you give it, your mind doesn't send it to you at a high octave. It sends it to you at a lower octave because now it sees you're not paying attention. So it starts to learn, all right, this person is choosing differently.
That voice is not as healthy and robust as it was when you used to feed it.
No.
Now that you don't feed it, it's a little emaciated.
Exactly. It goes from Oscar the Grouch to Elmo. Right. Where there's more deep eye to Elmo, Yeah. So I mean, it's something that's so important. That's everybody in our life, no matter who it is, has that voice. Most won't admit that it's there. Some will admit that it's there. Most are probably trapped by it and use it as their compass to keep them safe from doing things in life.
Yep.
Use it as their compass to what they can and cannot do in life, when they're actually, unfortunately, being held back and not living their life to their fullest potential because of that reason.
Well, that voice came out to play for you before you wrote a book. Like, right? I'm going to write a book. Book. I was going to read your book. Right at you. Okay, well, there you go. That's the inner critic.
Yeah.
Before we started this podcast, we would say, well, we should record. And then as soon as that idea came out into the ether, who came along to say, I have something to say about that.
Yeah.
You think you two got...
And people go, but is this successful, your show? Do you have 1 million followers?
Right.
That's not the point. Are we doing something that we both care about, find joy in, value? Yes. So whether there's 1 million people listening or 10 people listening, that doesn't make a difference. That's not where the measurement of success comes from. My mind would like to say that's where the measurement, my inner critic wants to tell me that's where the measurement of success comes from, which, by the way, it does. Don't get me wrong. Like, it will bark that at me sometimes. But when I do this show with you, when we do this show together, or whenever we go talk to somebody and we do it together, the value that I get out of that, and I know you get out of that, right? The joy that we get out of that is the choice, is what empowers us in life to make those choices. Like, we're doing something we care about. Whether 1 million people watch or 10 people watch, that's not the point. Because if I'm only doing it for the 1 million people to watch,
you can do something else.
Exactly. I can make the show. We could easily create a second podcast, and I guarantee you I'd have tenfold the amount of followers. Tenfold, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and it might be fun, but it's not something we value. I leave those conversations for when we're hanging out smoking a cigar,
Right.
and we laugh our asses off. That's where I leave those, because this is where there's value here, there's joy here for me when I do this. So my mind could tell me, you know what, you guys have whatever, you don't have enough listeners, and look, your metrics went down this month, or your metrics are here, and your metrics are there, and why you even bother doing this? How easy would it be for us to be like this? We're done. Henry,
Yeah. Let me concentrate on other stuff. Look, I missed a few phone calls on here. So. All right.
What happened?
I said I missed a few phone calls.
Oh.
I could take these phone calls, and I'm seeing a very weird message here, but that's it.
Yeah, but so we don't do it because we do it, and like everybody else should do something, not because their mind's telling them you could only do it if you're going to be successful. No, you could if you do it and you value it, you are successful. Whether it's you want to go out on that dance floor and dance, you might not be the best dancer in the world. Right. You might not even resemble a dancer when you're out there. But did you go do it? Did you enjoy it? You're successful. And I'm going to get I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No. I was about to say, as you're saying that, I just think back on that other episode where I mentioned the story about watching kids in a wheelchair, let's say, play baseball. Now, obviously, the kid in the wheelchair is not going to play on a real baseball team, but every so often they'll get together and they'll have the kid in the wheelchair play baseball. So there's two ways for that kid to think. I'm in a wheelchair, bro. I'm not going to this pity party where they throw the ball and I hit it. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. The other way is, yeah, we're gonna have fun, man. I'm not playing for the Yankees anytime soon, but goddamn it, let's go out there and I'm gonna kick some ass. You goddamn right.
Well, because
I'm gonna have fun.
That kid probably enjoys doing that, so he doesn't let the.
So that's one of a million gazillion examples. Like, I'm gonna watch a fat guy dance his heart out. He's fat. He's not coordinated. The music is playing one thing and he's dancing another one, but the look on his face, he's having the time of his life. He's enjoying himself and he's enjoying life.
Doesn't matter what you.
And he's not hurting anybody.
No, but it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't. That's nothing to do with anything.
But that's the story.
Yeah.
That's the story. The story is that we have to get past the story in our mind, the critique in our mind that's going to tell us, again, I'm not saying. So that's why I mentioned if you're not hurting anybody out. Yeah, obviously, if you're hurting somebody, you're doing something wrong. But something that you might find joy in, go ahead. Stop listening to that story if it's not giving you good advice. Well, you mentioned the guy flying. So you wanted to fly? Give it a try. Go sign up for lessons and go.
It's easy for us to say that, right? And we all know how strong that voice can be. We all understand how powerful that inner critic can feel. Like, it feels real, and it feels like it's there to protect you. And in a misguided way, it is there to protect you. And I say misguided because it's trying to do it with an antiquated system. It doesn't realize that there's no protection needed here. It's protecting you from embarrassing yourself. That's not a thing. It's protecting you from making a fool of yourself. That's not a thing. It's protecting you from people judging you. That's not a thing. Yes, people can do that, but that only means something if you give it credence. That only means something if you're going to allow somebody's words, thoughts, or opinions to keep you from doing things in life that you want to do, or how you want to do them, or whatever it might be. Or even a task that you're doing where your mind wants to beat on you and tell you you're not doing it right, you're not good enough, it's got to be better, or why are you even bothering doing this, and realize, because I value it and I care about it, and I'm going to do the best that I can. And whether that person thinks I'm an idiot or not should not be the reason why you don't or do it, right? Because your inner self-critic is going to stop you from doing those things, because it's going to use that's what it's going to use as the reason for. That's what it's going to use as the ammunition against you. But do you realize what people are going to say about you? And I know so many people in life who those words, put them in a box and put the box on the shelf, and that's where they live. And I'm safe here.
In a prison.
Yeah, you're in a prison. The gate's open. You like literally, it's not locked. You could open it and walk out anytime, but it keeps you there because you believe that those words that were either told to you as a child, even with the best of intentions, or you learned from your friends who were maybe bullies or stronger than you, or a coach or a teacher, even anybody, or social media or media or the news, whatever it might be, where you get this feeling that you're not good enough, you can't do it, you're not worthy because they're words. You know that all they are words. Imagine that your inner self-critic was a mute and it could not speak.
Well, you still have the feeling.
A feeling is one thing. A feeling is one thing, but when we have language to put to that feeling, we amplify it completely.
No doubt.
So we take a feeling, we take a natural instinct of anxiety from a 2, and we make it a 12.
You bring it to life.
You
give a 3D effect when
exactly. And there's no need to. So how do you overcome that? This world that we talk about every week is by far is by far the best way to navigate that. The same way it's the best way to navigate anxiety or depression or obsessive thinking or emotional, trying to regulate your emotions or anything, real life situations, health, everything. This works for all of it because you start to look at things from a 30,000 foot, you take a helicopter view, as Henry's always said, right? And you look at things differently.
You beat me too.
Yeah.
You 100% went exactly where I wanted to go, which is there. To summarize it, when you have the story, not the story. When you have the critique, you have the critic barking at you, notice, and you say to yourself, is my inner critic here barking at me? And if the answer is yes, more than likely it is going to be the one barking. You noticed. That is the biggest step. So you noticed. Now you say, is that what I want to do? Is that what my inner compass is telling me to do? Because it might be kind of right. I'm going to lay off because okay, great. But if your inner compass like, no, I kind of want to. Okay, well then, you have the choice.
It's a big word,
right? To do what you would like to do. Maybe there's a happy medium. But the point is, as soon as this inner critic goes, that you notice. And I think that's the part that most people don't even have on, the noticing.
No, that's why they
react
on the shelf.
So they react instead of respond. They just live in that box, live in that mental prison, and don't take me out of here because this is where I'm at. Like, wow. Like I know people that way. I know people
absolutely
who live in a mental prison.
And every day they live there.
And here's the best part. I'll call them out. Say, but you want to, and there's nothing stopping you. And I'll point out the mental prison, and I'll say, look, here's a mirror showing you your mental prison. Like, thanks. That's how hard ingrained
it is.
Yeah. That's how ingrained it is.
Well, it takes a certain level of willing to feel super uncomfortable, right? Because nothing we're doing is anything we're doing is going to require a willingness.
Yeah.
It's going to require a willingness to be there, whatever it might be. And if it's trying to, I know that there's probably books called Tame Your Inner Self-Critic, Inner Critic. I'm sure, I can guarantee you if you Google that, there's probably the name of a book. Tame Your Inner Critic.
Or beat him.
Yeah. There's
win him over.
And I would tell people, you're not trying to beat him, win him over, fight him, or tame him, or her, or it, whatever. Realize it's not reality. It's not real. It's words that were taught and told to you that have ingrained and are replaying now in certain situations. That's it. You don't need to take them serious. You don't need to take any thought serious. Like, And a lot of people don't realize that that's actually the reality of it. Like, you don't need to take any thought seriously unless it's important for something that needs to happen. Like, our mind isn't going to tell us facts 24/7. Probably 10% of the times, if I had to guess, our mind's actually being factual. The other 90%, it is throwing BS and making shit up, trying to navigate whatever your situation you're in.
Yep.
Most of them are going to be critical, judgmental, thoughts or feelings that it's going to bring up to try to manipulate you to keep you safe in one way or another. Again, doing its job. That's what it's there for. But when you realize that that's what it's there for, you unlock not computing power. Like, you don't become smarter or, oh no, I use 80% of my brain. No. You unlock capacity, which Henry always says, and I love it, to do so many more things because you don't believe everything that your mind tells you. So if your mind's telling you, I can't play baseball, I'm not strong enough, and you're a 12-year-old kid and you're skinny and everybody else is growing into their bodies, but you love the game and you could be on this team. Oh, you're going to listen to the voice that's going to tell you, I'm not good enough, worthy to be here because I'm not, 5'9" right now and 150. I'm still 5'2" and, 95 pounds or 100. If you do listen to that voice, and if you're a kid out there, or if you know a kid out there who's listening to that voice, ask the kid one question. Do you want to play the game? Whatever it might be. Do you want to do this? And if the kid goes, yeah, they go, then what's stopping you? That's it. That's it. And you know what? You unlock a door. You unlock a whole world, new way of looking at things to that kid. You're right. I can. And if your mind tells you you're not strong enough, thank you, mind. I want to be here. That's it. And that, as the more and more you do that, that ingrains even deeper. And now you start to really see this inner self-critic. And at times it's going to grab you. At times it's going to hold you and grab you and be really loud. But the more practice you get at it, the more you realize, I don't need to pay attention to it. I could follow a different compass. Like, this isn't, hey, in self-critic, you're not my compass. No. Your magnets are reversed. You're not functioning properly. I'm going to use my values as my compass. Because you know what? That compass is always spot on. Always spot on. Your values are something that are ingrained deeply, that you care about, that you want to do, that you enjoy, that you gravitate and resonates with you. This compass is going to feed you a bunch of BS that's going to try to keep you safe. So
It's a fake one.
it's a fake one. Yes.
Going back a little bit in the conversation, Bob Proctor grazed by this issue a little bit. He more than grazed by it. But he mentioned, so you know how, we grew up in our parents' household, therefore we think and act like that, right? And in other words, that was our formation. Those were
our surroundings.
Right. That was our formative years. He goes, just to prove to you, it's completely evolutionary and biological. I don't even know how to explain it, but how many times has an American family here with white Anglo-Saxon, let's say, background adopted a newborn baby from China? So the facial features and all the physical features are very different. But that baby grows up, and by the time that baby's 7 years old, does not understand one word of Chinese, speaks only English, is completely American, speaks our language, not that language, and has all the trauma that those parents. In other words,
I love that, but that's so true. That's so true.
That's what it is, and
that's great.
This practice breaks all barriers. There is no, you can't practice mindfulness because
why?
You're missing a left limb.
No,
you still practice mindfulness.
Yeah,
you can't practice mindfulness because
I like that.
Right?
So yeah, no, I love that. That's great.
So there is nothing impeding you, and that process that we all are guilty of, and I use the word guilty in a very provocative way. We do that to our kids by mistake. We don't know any better. But you can know better. And more powerfully than you knowing better is your kids. If your kids know better, they will be, or they could become parents and they will be mindful parents. And that is where things really take hold.
Yeah,
where
that's where you break generational
second
traumas.
generation,
Yeah.
mindfulness. And 100%, the trauma aspect.
Well, I use the word trauma. So when I say generational,
Powerful.
yeah, but it's not like like a traumatic trauma that you experience. But that generational trauma, meaning we stopped giving our kids the things that fucked us up. In layman's terms.
But forget that for a second, which is already good enough, right? Already good enough. We all carry a certain amount of prior trauma. So
yeah, sure.
I mean, I don't know the statistics, but and we have daughters, but I think it's 70% of the girls out there go through an event in their life where they were attempted rape, molestation, improper touching, improper, rubbing up against, whatever the inappropriate, like about 70, I forget the state. As I said, our daughters are in that world of a potential, well, my own daughter had a, so whatever the trauma may be, we can get past it. We can transcend trauma, even currently, because something happened in their past. And on top of that, the trauma where our parents, you're not good enough. Whatever it is that meant, you can really get past and transcend it all.
And it's not this isn't repressing or not, what's the word I'm looking for? Validating it, like didn't happen.
Or doing the balloon trick.
Yeah, no. It's looking it face on. This is the beauty of it, right? Even with whether it's a trauma from something that happened or this inner self-critic that's created this trauma in your life of telling you you're not good enough, you don't ignore it. Because, by the way, the more you ignore it, and when I say ignore, I mean ignore, like you're not there, you're not there, you're not there. How many times is a screaming kid, well, yeah. They'll keep coming at you, right? Until you look at them straight in the face, but don't react. And you become that mirror, right? With your own trauma, your own inner self-critic, you have to look at it dead in the eyes. It's not about saying you're not there. I'm not good enough. I was told I wasn't good enough as a kid. I wasn't as athletic. I wasn't as tough. I wasn't as strong. I was a Mary. Any word. I was told all those things as a kid. You know when I made bones? You know when I transcended it? When I actually looked at those words and those thoughts here, like nose to nose, not being a tough guy. Thank you. You don't get to tell me how I live my life.
No more power.
No more power. All of a sudden, it becomes like the boogeyman in your corner that you're so scared of opening a closet. So you open the closet and you see your clothes hanging there and not a scary monster, but your mind is telling you can't open the closet. There's a scary monster in there. There's no scary monster. But until you open that closet and actually go face to face with it to see, is it there? You're going to live your life going, I can't open that. I can't go near that. I'm scared of the dark. I can't go in there. You're creating parameters. And it'll do the same thing with you. If you're in a self-critic telling you you're not A, B, or C, let it come right to your nose. Look at it and say, thank you very much. But you don't get to tell me how I live my life. I choose that. And if I value this, I'm going to give it a shot. It might feel uncomfortable. It might feel weird, off-putting, like any word you can think of. Like it's going to feel like you're going against the grain. You know why? Because you are going against the grain. And that's where progress is made, right? So
yeah.
But you got to be there. You got to look. You got to be willing to say, okay, what do you got? But not, come on, what do you got? No, what do you got?
As people that have been through, this process, and we live it. We live this practice. It's our biggest growth has come from the biggest adversity that we've had. That's where the biggest growth potential is.
Amen.
And it's it's. So reframe it as if you have an adverse situation or adversity, reframe it as a potential, let's say, opportunity to grow, to make your best growth. That's a potential. So it's not a problem; it's an opportunity, and make of that opportunity what you will, and it's possibly it could change your life, or at least have such an impact on you. I go, wow, that was impactful. That okay. Well, you're making new path roads. You're making new ways for things to happen in your mind.
Yeah. And scientifically, you're creating new neural pathways. Your mind starts to actually think a little bit differently. And the more you do that, the more you fortify that, the more you strengthen that avenue instead of you defaulting back to the other avenue. Because your mind, like I said, doesn't forget its old patterns. They're there, but the pattern you give attention to is a pattern that becomes more dominant.
It's a wolf.
It's
the wolf.
I don't know how many times we can tell you it comes back to the same freaking thing every week.
You know what's funny?
It's hysterical.
Before we started recording,
Repetitive.
Before we started recording, we're talking about somebody else's woes, and you're like, we all have our woes. We all have our things. We all have our things that we got to. It's 100%. So the people that you see here before you, preaching, professing, we have our own things that we deal with.
Life doesn't stop.
Right. We deal with these things and we frame it with mindfulness, and again, every situation is different. But when we have success, we want to share it. And this framework, this iOS, allows us to really succeed a lot when it's the battle of and I use the word battle, that's right, because I have to use
He hasn't said that word in months.
When it's a battle of the inner critic. You could totally notice the inner critic, and you could totally say, no, I'm good, because you've been there before, because it's a practice.
So not to go enough, because we're coming up on the time now, but so just to give a little bit of a example. 2 years ago, I'll use me if you don't want to use you, but 2 years ago.
Use me for anything you want except for that one thing I told you.
That happened in Greece once. It was an accident. No. So 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, let's just say, right? So let's say 3 years ago, right before the show started. That inner self-critic that was there, that was telling you certain things. A, is it gone? And then B, if it's not gone, how do you relate to it now the way you did 3 years ago?
Okay, so definitely not gone.
Okay. Exactly. Which I don't expect it to be.
Definitely not gone, but it's much more quiet.
Quality of life kind of thing I'm talking about.
Oh my God. Yeah. So it's the difference is night and day. Now, again, it doesn't mean you don't have your moments. It doesn't mean that I'm free from.
No, it's not about that.
From anything.
But are you enjoying the moments in life more now or 3 years ago? Even in the face of this, that, the other thing.
Stories. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
But yes is a small word compared to
what it actually. Yeah. The difference, the way life actually feels.
It's
as an experience, right?
Yeah.
Did you get it? Do you understand? Do you 94 episodes? Do you understand yet? It's not. It's okay. Go back to episode 1. Start listening again. Give us a call. Like, subscribe. Email me. Email Henry. Hit us up on Facebook. Like I said, go to my website, jonathanilya.com. There's stuff there. Check it out.
We'll be here again next week.
And we'll be here again next week. Oh, you know why? Because we value and enjoy this, not because we have 2 listeners. Or 2,000 or 2 million.
And God forbid you need to sell a house or buy a house here in New Jersey. Let me tell you something. I'm
sponsored by White Realtors.
I'm going to tell you how mindfulness has helped me in my business. And it has. I am relatable. So although I absolutely would like to sell a house a day,
you'd be one busy
right. So as much as I would like that, you have to start somewhere, and I had to do a lot of work. Mindfulness really helped me a lot. Doing all that work, getting ready for my new profession, and when people come across a mindful person, it's a different thing. Now, here's a caveat: the other person could be blind, so they'll treat you disrespectfully no matter what, and they're not going to pick up that you're mindful.
If they're unconscious like that, they have no clue.
As a mindful person,
they just think you're an asshole.
I just notice, and I let the car pass by.
Why get hit by it?
I'm good. But you make connections with people that even they don't know what they're picking up. They're picking it up.
Absolutely. We're going to start asking for sponsors. I
Jim-
don't, but I really should.
Jim Weicker, the founder, he's still alive and kicking.
Yeah, Jim, come on, bro. I'll give you a great deal. And if anybody out there, no joking aside, wants to sponsor the show, absolutely. We'd love to be sponsored by somebody.
Yeah.
Somebody who's mindful and appreciates what we do. If you love to sponsor us and help us keep this going, because there's an expense to running this every week. My production team in the back will,
Yeah, you don't see them because they're behind the camera.
or because they're not there. One of the two.
But who do you think does our makeup, wardrobe, gets all this?
They should be fired then. All right, that's enough. We're good. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hope you got something from it. If you have any questions, let us know. Or else, have a great week. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Peace and love.
See you on the next one.
The next one. The insights and discussions that we speak about on our show are our own opinions and based on our life experiences. If you or someone in your family or someone you know is suffering and in need of help, please get them that help through medical attention or seeking proper therapy. Again, what we speak about are based on our experiences and not intended to be taken as a form of therapy. Thank you.